Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 205 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. We have a great guest today, Zara Najam. Zara Najam, I'm trying to pronounce it right. I think I butchered her first name. Zara Najam, a great colleague of ours who works with Erickson Law Firm, one of the bigger firms in our field, does global migration, which is something as a backup, if I wasn't doing US-based immigration, I'd definitely go global migration. Seems really exciting. So we're going to talk with her about how she got involved and the things she's seeing on a global scale right now, which is changing every day with these lockdowns and the Delta variant coming, all that kind of stuff. So it's just more legal work that's unexpected popping up. But before getting into that, I want to remind everybody that the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine, issue number 2 is out. Go to www.immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine and check that out. Sarah was nice enough to contribute an article about global migration there. So you could read her article. It's really good guidance. When you have clients, sometimes you just can't help them. You think you have got to start thinking creatively about alternatives, like going to Canada or then maybe do an L1 or something like that. It's really good to have these options in your pocket in case you need to bring them out. I want to thank the sponsors of the magazine and the podcast, in particular, DocWise, the immigration form software and case management system and firm management system. You get an extra 10% off their annual plan by going to docwise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast and using the code Immigration Lawyers Podcast. They have all sorts of new software in there, especially for employment-based stuff that they're growing. It's definitely something worth checking out. Also, I do have a training program. I get contacted by a lot of people interested in immigration law, making the switch, coming over. I have a training program that's about marriage immigration law. It's called Champions for Freedom, helping people get their freedom through immigration and then helping you manage your own firm and get your freedom as well that way. We have 12 hours plus hours and hours of office hours of training and stuff, and material, contracts, everything to help you really have success in your immigration practice. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Zara. How are you?
Good, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I was focused on pronouncing your last name right, Najam, but is it Zara? Is there? How's the best way to pronounce it?
It's Zara. You got it right the second time. It's all right.
Thanks so much for coming on. Zara is, the global migration. Erickson been doing this for a long time. Her story of how she got involved in immigration was really interesting too. So I wanted to go through that, I guess, to start. Could you discuss how you found your way into immigration, global migration, not U.S. immigration per se?
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, I initially began my legal career as a litigation attorney, as a civil litigation attorney. I practiced for 5 years in Texas. And then when I moved to California about 4.5 years ago now, that's when I actually made the switch because, litigation, it can take a toll. It's constantly you're on and, working on weekends, nights. So I wanted a little bit of a change. And so when I moved to California, I applied for a position at my previous immigration firm where they were looking for someone to basically establish their global migration program from the ground up. So build all of the local counsel network, establish procedures and processes, just basically everything from scratch. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I said, yes, I'd be happy to take on the challenge. I was excited to learn about different cultures and different countries' immigration schemes, right? So we know the U.S. very well, but not everyone does things like the U.S. So it was kind of a fun challenge for me. So that's kind of how I got started.
How did you reach out to get that first job? Did you know him already? Was that a conference or something? Because people are interested in finding jobs always. How did that happen?
Yeah, so it was actually through a recruiter. So the recruiter reached out to me directly and was looking for someone who had experience, just managing a program, which I was doing as a litigator as well. And then just, a lot of really being able to practice and someone who was curious, who was able to, just not be afraid of a challenge, to take on a new challenge, and was obviously a lawyer who'd been practicing for a while. So I know how to communicate with clients. I have a certain standard when it comes to client correspondence and meeting their expectations. So really, it's just, again, if you're smart, and that's what I look for in my staff when I hire as well now in my team, is someone who is intelligent, organized, meticulous, and is willing to learn and take on a challenge. So really, that's what global migration is. In terms of substantive knowledge, we work very closely with immigration providers in every country. So that's really where the substantive knowledge and the guidance comes from. But really, my job mainly is to manage the client relationship, break down the legalese that oftentimes, lawyers get stuck in, and kind of make sure that the client understands the process in a simple way. We're setting the client's expectations in terms of timeline and process, and making sure that we're communicating with recruiters. I do mainly corporate immigration. So really, that's kind of my role. And so it's really just, managing, learning new things from local providers, and then making sure my clients understand it as well.
How did you develop these relationships with for a new program with all these global supply of network of lawyers, I guess?
Yeah, John, as you picked up, it's very important to have a good network of local providers in every country, someone who understands international companies and their needs and how they operate, right? So I really relied on the American Immigration Lawyers Association's Global Migration section. So really, I attend their conferences every year. I am a very active member of GMS as well. And through that, I've been able to meet in person, and just even through their listserv, the resources that they have available, I've been able to meet the type of lawyers that understand the corporate needs that my clients are specifically looking for, and so that's really where I started to establish my network. But over the past 4 or 5 years, I've really been able to kind of build on that, and so yeah, that's kind of where I started.
Interesting. And without giving away too many of your trade secrets for your company, how do you go about finding international clientele? Are these companies the U.S. branches are working with that's requesting? Is that how it starts, like the initial seeds of a growth of an international practice?
Yeah. So, John, that's a good question. I primarily work with clients who are U.S.-based companies initially, and then just have just experienced growth over the past few years and have established offices in other major economic hubs, right? So we're talking Australia, Canada, the UK, all over Europe. So really, that's kind of where the companies that I work with most, that's how I've started to work with them for their global migration needs. I've had a few clients the other way around. So I've had clients approach me specifically for needs only in the UK or only in Germany, only in a country abroad, which we will absolutely do. But really, the majority of my work is, based is reliant on US-based teams.
You had mentioned a recruiter contact you. What was the method? Was it on LinkedIn or some other way they contacted you?
Yeah, it was on LinkedIn. So, everyone should keep their LinkedIn profile updated, just in case you're open to new opportunities. Really, I think there, again, if you're looking kind of to your job, to your point, John, if you're looking for opportunities, oftentimes you just have to make sure that you are not only, staying active in LinkedIn, but publishing articles in industry magazines, speaking in industry conferences, doing webinars like this, just making sure that you're contributing intellectually to your field, and you'll get noticed, right? You'll get noticed. People reach out to you, and that's how you kind of grow in your career.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I've been getting a lot of emails recently from lawyers, immigration lawyers, saying, if you have overflow, I could help you out, this and that. And it's these cold called email kind of things where I'm like, why don't you just keep posting about your experience or information, knowledge? And once I see my feed over time, I'll develop a relationship and a respect, not that I disrespect them, but a respect level for their work, as opposed to a blind like LinkedIn communication. I don't know who this person is. I don't know, trust them. I don't know their capabilities. Really having developed, and that's really good. I see a lot of lawyers don't like LinkedIn because they say, it's a waste of time, or they get a lot of trash and spam and stuff like that. But you're an example that it works. I mean, you created a whole career. I'm surprised at first you may not have trusted the recruiter, or you're like, is this real? Is this fake?
Well, you have to meet them in person. So that's what I did. I said, why don't we just set up a lunch? Let's talk a little bit more about it, because it's also whether the position that they're looking to fill is the right fit for you, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very important that each step that you take for your career is in towards the direction that you want to go in, right? So you do have to be intentional as well about, the opportunities you choose to pick up as well.
So how big is your team now? I know you've been hiring and growing a lot. How many people is part of your single team within Ericsson?
Yeah. So our firm has quite a large international practice. I'm proud to say. I don't even know, but it's somewhere between 25 to 30 people, maybe a little bit more. And the exciting part is that in recent months, we've experienced growth ourselves internationally. So it's very important, for me at least, is that we meet our clients where they are, right? So yes, we have clients who have their HQs in the US, but they also have teams in, like I said, overseas in APAC, in the EMEA region, in LATAM. So we have started to actually, build out our offices and staff specifically located in those regions, again, to meet our clients' time zone needs as well, right? So and as we'll discuss a little bit further, John, when our clients find these very sought after, highly skilled talent, they want to be able to send that job opportunity to a job, or offer to them immediately. And so they need to hear from, whether if it's a foreign national that they need to hire, they need to hear from us very quickly. And so that's something that's kind of become very important now is for us, is to be able to provide them quick turnarounds when it comes to that.
Which one thing is led you to be currently in London where this recording's happening? What is it, evening there right now, or is it still late afternoon?
Yeah, no, it's 6:41 here. So not too bad, not too bad. You could still see the sunlight, but to be honest, I'm very surprised at how late it stays light out here. So I'm originally from Los Angeles. Like you mentioned, I'm on a short-term assignment to London to assist my clients with Brexit-related changes. So that's kind of the reasoning behind me being here and providing, like I said, on-the-ground support, which is very important. So yeah, I'm getting used to it. I've finally gotten used to the time change. So that's why I look this awake and alive today.
You mentioned how big your team has gone. When you worked, that program with litigation, did you have a lot of people underneath you there? What I'm trying to see is how you develop management techniques to manage as many people, because things get out of control really quick, every person you add.
Yeah, actually, so no, when I was doing litigation, the largest team that I managed was 5 people. But what I think is it's just, growing and getting experience. So I'm in my 9th year of practice now. So I think over the years I've learned little bits and just through experience, I've learned how people work and how to change my leadership style to meet the needs of my team, how to best guide them based on their personalities. So I think it's really, and then also I realize the importance of training, right? So like I said, when I hire for my team, I really look for specific skills, but they don't have to know global. They don't have to know the ins and outs of every country's immigration process. I will provide that training. I will provide also not only the substantive training, or our team will also kind of guide them in kind of helping them learn the substantive knowledge as well. So it's just, years of experience you learn, you work, your team teaches you as much as you teach them. Really, it's a partnership, as I'm sure you know as well, having your own firm. So yeah, that's how it's gotten here.
That's very interesting. I mean, hiring has always been something that I'm starting to get into, because I'm for my marketing team in the toolbox, getting people involved. And you have some false starts. You have to hire people, fire people, and then I learned better how to choose and talk with them. And as you said, it's not I don't need people to know already how to do stuff necessarily, but they have to have a willingness to learn and be able to communicate properly and not be shy sometimes. I've hired people that are kind of shy, and it's hard because I need information. I need to talk with them, and it's not good. Then on the other end, some people talk too much, and they're just kind of wasting time or saying stuff you want to hear just to say it. So it's like that middle spot is so key in the hiring process. But you must be swamped with work right now with global migration. I mean, it's is it like what 12-hour days every day? I'm guessing, or how does it look?
Well, thankfully, because I have teams kind of everywhere now, I don't have to cover every time zone in the world. So that's also kind of a benefit of having a global team. But like you said, yeah, I mean, especially with the travel restrictions and just changing immigration rules, constantly we have immigration alerts and updates. So yeah, it's actually quite a busy field, but that's what makes it exciting.
Mhm.
It's never boring. It's also, in addition to obviously the COVID related changes, over the past year, we've observed a lot of changes with the immigration schemes of various countries and the way they prioritize, for hiring foreign nationals over their own citizens or permanent residents when it comes to jobs. So we've noticed countries like Singapore and even Canada have even tightened their requirements for companies to bring in foreign nationals for certain positions, because they'd rather have those companies or those roles be filled by their own citizens and their own permanent residents. Because of course, due to COVID, unemployment rates have really skyrocketed in certain countries. So we're having to kind of navigate those changes as well and advise our clients on those strategies, in addition to travel restrictions. And of course, as we discussed in my article, keeping employees that cannot stay in the U.S. Like, how else do they, what are their alternative options as well?
Yeah, exactly. Well, U.S. immigration changes every second, it seems, but your job seems the only job that's more complicated than tax and U.S. immigration seems to be global migration. I mean, I was on TikTok this morning, and it apparently in France, some guy was saying they made it so you can't even go shopping at a supermarket if you're not vaccinated and stuff. So I'm not sure if it's true or not, but it's these extreme maneuvers are coming in for COVID. You can imagine like travel and outbound or global migration gets hit. Canada seems like it's easing up a little bit for Canadians or something like that. I was reading some headlines. But I mean, was there like a full stop that happened and has happened, or is it still kind of work that you have to do? How has it been globally?
Yeah, so thankfully, now the trend is that we're starting to see a little bit of easing up when it comes to restrictions and it comes to processing time. We're seeing faster processing time. In terms of the trends that we've observed over the past year globally, which is covering a lot of countries, of course, there's going to be caveats, but really what we were seeing was that it still remained pretty, I would say, I guess easy is the word I would use, but to hire professionals in the IT sector and the healthcare sector. But when it came to sales roles, marketing roles, customer service roles, we saw a little bit more pushback from the government. We saw the labor market testing requirements still kept in place for those positions. So it really is kind of based on a number of things. So our assessments, when we do these for our clients, really take into account, what type of role are you sponsoring for? What is the salary? What is the seniority of this employee? And then based on that, we're able to advise on, how quickly can you get this employee hired in one of your international offices, or perhaps we recommend different routes. So, oftentimes maybe employer-sponsored route isn't the only one we'd recommend. Like a few of the people that actually commented on my article, they brought up the global talent stream that's often available for the highly skilled individuals that are unable to meet the employer-sponsored criteria. So a lot of Australia and the UK have a global talent stream. Even Canada does, that we can explore to see if that's a better option to keep foreign national, of course, for employers as well, but just to give the foreign national just generally more immigration options. So really, there's a lot of different strategies we look at. So it's not an easy question to answer, John, but there are some general rules that we can follow.
Now, the last substance of what I ask is, what is going on with Brexit and immigration? Are there final plans yet, or is it still taking years to figure out what's going on with Brexit for the UK? Have they specified the guidelines yet for UK inbound migration?
Yeah, so John, I'm glad to say for at least immigration aspect of it, we're pretty much at the end. So the last deadline that we were waiting for was June 30th. So essentially what this means is that now everyone who is an EU national or third country national. So everyone has to apply. If they're moving to the UK to work, they have to apply for a visa. And earlier on the year, the UK announced their new points-based immigration scheme. So they've basically announced a new type of visa called the skilled worker visa that employers now have to use to sponsor foreign nationals. There has been actually elimination of the labor market test, which means that as long as the salary threshold has been met and the educational requirements are met, it's much easier to sponsor foreign nationals in the UK now post Brexit than it was before. But that also means you have to now sponsor EU nationals, which previously you did not have to as a UK employer, right? So there are more employees that companies are now having to sponsor, but it's just a little bit easier comparatively to their old scheme. So yeah, really, we're at the end of it, and there have been right to work changes announced. So the documents that are required to prove work authorization in the UK, those have been revised. So that's kind of what I'm doing for my clients right now, is providing their HR and talent acquisition teams training for making sure that they obtain the proper work authorization documents for new onboards, and then also making sure that they are aware of the recent postgraduate work permit that the UK also announced, which makes it easier to hire those foreign nationals who graduated from UK universities. So there's a lot, to be honest with you, John, as a result of Brexit for immigration. I think there's a lot of positive changes that happened and make it easier for companies to expand in the UK. So
I want to ask some more pointed questions. Are there caps with regard to inbound migration to UK now for these skilled workers? Not like the H-1B, there's a cap. There's no caps on that?
No caps at all.
And before Brexit, was it an open market where anyone at whatever skill level could come work at the EU, but now it's made less inclusive?
Yes. So yeah, absolutely. So before, you just had to show your a passport from an EU country. And that's it. That's all you needed to be able to come and live and work in the UK, and vice versa. So British nationals could go to any EU country and live and work without requiring any sort of immigration support. But now British nationals do also require visas when they move to an EU country to be able to live and work there. So really, there's more policies and procedures involved now. So it's a little bit more exclusive in that way, but really we're able to find, especially for the highly skilled talent that the clients that I'm working with require, we usually don't foresee any challenges in being able to onboard candidates.
It's going to be a huge shift for unskilled people and potentially self-employed kind of people. They have to find different categories or just go back home on their side of the pond.
So if they were living in the UK already before Brexit, they were able to apply for what's called the EU settlement scheme, which would allow them to continue to preserve their right to live and work in the UK, which is what, so they were given a chance. They were given a chance before they were kicked out.
It can be so disruptive with this kind of stuff. Immigration, you never know. It just things pop up and they change. But that's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to shift things, and obviously, skilled workers coming in is always a positive, brings a lot of talent. But then there's the anti-immigrant side that says, "Oh, you're taking away our skilled workers' job or position and stuff like that." So it's a mixed bag. You're going to get political pushback, especially for people who voted for Brexit. But at least sometimes they say, even if it's a bad law, at least let us know what the law is, so we can work on what that is and work on changing it if needed. But when it's up in the air and you're waiting and to figure it out, like here we have DACA, deferred action child arrivals. It's there, it's not there. Now, as the judge said, it's not there. There's the finality of it. Sometimes it's a good thing because it gives it open to get better stuff, but it's frustrating because people's lives are in the balance. Like they've got to decide, should I take my kids from school? Should I, stay here? What should I do? So it gets really disruptive, but I'm glad they're finalized that plan.
Yeah. If now we just got to figure out what it is, and that's what we're here to help with our clients. But it's been solidified finally. Yeah.
Good. So on a personal level, what are your plans? I mean, you got your practice group that you started. You're traveling the world. You're gonna be in UK for a little longer. Any plans after that? Are you gonna go to like the Europe, or are you gonna come like back to the US, or it's kind of to play it by ear?
I'm planning on taking at least a few vacations. I'm hoping that these travel restrictions ease up a little bit so I can not have to quarantine on my way back in. But generally speaking, proof of vaccine is making things easier. So I'm hoping to take a little vacation. I'm going to, so like I mentioned, we have staff here on this side of the world as well. So I have a few team members in Dublin that are based out of Dublin. So I'm actually going to meet them finally in person this weekend. So that's going to be my next trip. But after that, really come back to the US, get settled back in, and we'll see where life takes me from there.
I just spoke with Amanda Brill. She's a U.S. immigration colleague in London, and she was talking about Freedom Day happened, finally get out of your house and stuff. So were you locked in the house and not able to go check out London up till now, or were you able to kind of sneak out?
No, actually, so Freedom Day is more so about the travel restrictions completely being lifted when it comes to gatherings and social events. So actually, London's pretty much it's normal stuff, to be honest with you. I did have to do the 10-day quarantine when I first arrived. But really, businesses have been open, indoor dining is open, shopping and retail has really been open for quite some time. But really, Freedom Day was lifting the remaining restrictions in terms of like sizes of groups that you can socialize with, and then just a few changes to the UK has a green list of countries, an amber list of countries, and red list. So a few changes there with regards to that. But thankfully, all of that's over and behind us now.
Yeah, hopefully this. I saw another TikTok the other day that Australia is really shutting down itself internally because of COVID to be protective and really hardcore laws. And one thing I read an article on was they weren't even allowed. They're limiting the number of inbound people coming in, regardless of citizenship status. So, like I have a client who came on a tourist visa to see his wife, was planning to go back, and all of a sudden he's like, "I can't even go back. They won't let me go back now," and he's gonna fall out of status. So he's just gonna end up staying and adjusting just because he was forced to, wasn't planning on it. But how dramatic has the Australian situation been for you?
Yeah, John. Actually, I did see that article that you posted on LinkedIn, and it reminded me Australia has been one of the most strict countries when it came, even since last March, I want to say. So they actually require, like you mentioned, they're not discriminating based on citizenship either. So really, they require all of their citizens who are currently in Australia to obtain an exit permit before they're even allowed to leave the country, which is quite a difficult process. And exit permits have been denied. So unfortunately, Australians and permanent residents do have to obtain the government's permission before they're allowed to leave the country. Mm-hmm. And then the foreign nationals, I think that's what you were referring to. So those residents who are in Australia on any kind of visa, even a student visa, employer visa, whatever type of visa, spouse visa, if they leave the country, they have to obtain permission to return back to Australia. And I can tell you that I've had more denials for those re-entry permissions. Maybe I can remember like one or two instances where we were able to obtain some successful re-entry permission. But Australia is very serious about closing their borders, and we don't have any sort of indication that they're going to ease up on those restrictions anytime soon. So if you're in Australia, you're probably stuck there, and if you're outside, unlikely that you're able to return back.
And you got to figure out a way to deal with the visa of that country that you're going to overstay. And even getting that outbound permission, like one client of mine wanted to come for like a wedding, and they say you have to be I think a 90-day trip or more, or something like that. So there was all these hoops you had to jump through, and it was quite dramatic. It's just not allowing citizens to return. You want to have, if you think as a human being on this earth, you have some safe country you could return to whatever happens. But this is groundbreaking, like a country, a Western country, doing something so hardcore. Personally, I'm not happy. I think that's way too extreme. There's different ways you could have quarantine or something like Canada did. Canada to me was still extreme too, that you go to the hotel and all that kind of stuff and pay for it. New Zealand has some extreme stuff as well. I had clients who were married and they were going to go see family. There was like a situation like we can't go to New Zealand. It's such a headache to be able to visit that country. But we'll see. We're thinking the pandemic's over now. Things are getting bad, especially Los Angeles is one of the hot zones with the new variant. Pray that things get better soon because it's just so disruptive for everyone's lives.
Yeah, John. I mean, you're absolutely right. COVID turned, what we take for granted into a luxury, really. Like, being able to return to your own country, you would think that's a given, but apparently that's not. And to be able to even leave your country, some Australian employees that I've worked with, they've expressed to me that they feel kind of like prisoners in their own country because they can't leave unless they get their government's permission. So it really is testing what we thought we knew.
The era of globalization, like the free movement or close to free movement of people, was something I really cherish. So people to be able to move and take their talent knowledge. But I think these restrictions for COVID, even when the pandemic ends, probably a lot of these countries are going to maintain this kind of power in certain ways. So that's from a freedom and liberty side, I'm praying that this is just a phase and we get over it.
I hope so too. I really hope so too. Yeah.
Well, on that happy note, what if people want to reach out to you? What's the best way to connect? Do you have any social media handles that they can follow?
Sure, absolutely. So like I mentioned, I am on LinkedIn, so please feel free to connect with me there. And then, of course, if you have any questions related to immigration or travel restrictions, I'd be happy to answer them. You can reach out to me at zara@eiglaw.com.
And Jerry Erickson Immigration Group has a podcast as well that's very popular. It competes with mine on the top of the ratings. So, but I'm always happy to plug everybody. But thanks for putting out that good information. Stay on the line, but I want to say bye to our listeners. Check out Zara's article at the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine, www.immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. It'll be a lot of help to increase your practice, because knowing global migration, at least having a connection like that, it really makes you look good in front of your clients. As they ask a question, you're like, don't worry, I have a guy or gal that could do this. Is that cool nature of I got this covered. So having a relationship with a global migration attorney is one of those tools in your toolbox that's going to be really key to being like a high-end practitioner.
Absolutely.
All right, bye everyone.
Take care.